Ladies and gentlemen, we have a breaking news for NEO stock. What's going on with NEO stock? Tesla spying the QQQ very briefly. I want to talk about why NEO was up over 10% for the day, holding up very nicely after some very bullish news came out. What the news was, why it's looking very good for NEO, and what I do expect to happen to NEO now moving forward. As NEO is getting lots of volume and more buyers are continuing to step in as NEO is once again defying the ODS. But robbery gain theme demo, why NEO is looking pretty good. What's going on with NEO stock? So NEO is up almost 11% for the day, absolutely killing it. Continuing to run very nicely. That's because we had some very bullish news that came out right here in China. We're starting to discuss the Chinese officials expressing an intent to pursue more policies meant to help the economy. And we'll discuss the Chinese government discuss the more and more support for a transition into the EV space and to invest more into supercharging investments, clean energy transportation projects and things like that. So this is once again very bullish news for the Chinese tickers and companies like NEO, which are going to be investing into cleaner energy. Once again, very awesome news for them. The Chinese government also showed support for developing and maintaining strong batteries and continuing to improve, so that was once again also very good for them as well. On top of this, you have to remember that the whole market was pumping today in anticipation of strong earnings, because the market believes this is going to be the last Fed rate hike that's coming on Wednesday. And on top of that, you can't forget about how we had bullish news for both Apple and Tesla, and also Microsoft. Microsoft has earnings very soon. The market is expecting a very decent amount of earnings. The market's pumping approaching it. Secondly, you have to remember that Apple stock. They also announced that they had some upgrades and things like that, which was good. And last but not least, we had Tesla, which announced that they're going to be working on a possible $24,000 EV in India. So all this bullish news came out at once. Market ended up pumping because of it, and that helped NEO simultaneously. That wasn't the only reason yield was up, but that just helped to some degree. For tomorrow, there's going to be some volatility at about 30 minutes after the market opens. We have the consumer confidence report and the manufacturing index data. That's really the only major piece of data 30 minutes after the market opens for tomorrow. But then for Wednesday, don't forget we have the FOMC meeting. To add on to this, let me just remind you all that we have some huge earnings coming out before the market opens tomorrow. We have Verizon, GM, 3MGE, Spotify, and just a couple of others. These are going to be some big ones, especially on the communications side for Tuesday. And then for Tuesday, after the market closes, we have Microsoft and Google and Snap and a bunch of others. And then for Wednesday, we have the FOMC meeting and Meta. But the biggest thing is going to be Tuesday after the market closes, when we have Microsoft, Google, and all these big ones. Expect lots of volatility so far. The market's expected some good stuff, and that's why the market's holding up. NEO put on their Twitter page right over here that they didn't really put anything new since the last time I looked at it, but for now we're seeing more optimism and more hype coming up for it, as NEO is continuing to build more power swap stations. We're actually discussing the increasing price-press ratio. The price comparison relative to SPY, NEO is holding up quite nicely. JP Morgan is neutral on NEO, which is pretty decent, haven't really changed. But Tuesdays tend to be strong days about 55% of the time, the strongest day of the week for NEO, so let's hope we get a good Tuesday. And simultaneously, the short interest has been dropping as we're discussing the more short covering, which is helping NEO pump. NEO also had 107 million in volume, well above average, more than twice the average volume. Overall looking quite bullish. The question is, where is NEO gonna go? And here's my answer. If we're bullish on NEO, we want to discuss the break above 12.25. If that breaks 12.5, then $13. After that, we could see it pump all the way up to 13. If we do continue to break out of these levels, if NEO is bearish, we discussed the support at 11.5 as the major support, 11.33, and then 11.21, and then 11 flats. And if it breaks below 11, we discuss it come all the way down to 10.66. This imbalance down here, in my opinion, what do I think? It's more likely for tomorrow we might some consolidation as the market is anticipating some earnings. But if we get more positive news, NEO test 12.25. I think it's gonna pop to 12.25 or so in the morning. Then it may slow down, just consolidate for a bit, kind of like this moment right here. But I do think there could be a little bit more upside. How nicely it's holding, it's also pumping in the after hours as well. So far, it's looking more bullish than bearish. But for the rest of the market, it's gonna depend heavily on the earnings. If SPY breaks 455, we discuss the 456. If it breaks below 454, we're gonna discuss this thing test. 45, 3.5. If Tesla breaks above 270, we discuss this thing fly for about 272, then 275. If it breaks below 270, 268, then potentially 265 below that. For now, it looks more bullish than bearish. Now, could you argue that this is forming like a really nice looking bullish triangle structure? It is actually forming that, and there's a good chance Tesla is gonna try to break out tomorrow. So we discussed 275 on Tesla. But here's the thing about Tesla. Be very careful, because we have big tech earnings coming out. If Microsoft and the others don't do as well, then this could have a negative effect on the stock price. But we have to be careful just to be safe. Alright, well, don't forget we also have this unfilled gap and this imbalance right here around this 278 area. If we could get above 275, 278, and it does seem very possible for Tesla. Now, add on to this last but not least, for the triple key. If we're bullish, we want to be discuss this thing break above 377. If it breaks that, 380. If you're bearish, it break below 375. And if that fails, there's 374. Then 373 for the gap fill. What do I think is more likely? Well, it's trying to base right here, getting very tight. A big move tomorrow and Wednesday. My gut tells me we may try to go for this imbalance of like 381 more time before we start to discuss some sideways price action. But for now, possibly to the upside, but just be patient just to be safe. Alright, so with that said, I do think NEO has more upside coming, but I'm always gonna remain comical and collected just to be safe. For now, NEO is gaining momentum, is trying to push up. But please be very cautious simultaneously, because you have to remember, we have Microsoft, Google, and Snap all reporting earnings for tomorrow. If they flop, the market is going to get a rug pull on Wednesday. If they do well, the market could explode. If it's mixed, the market may trade sideways. Make sure you're prepared for this. Expect big volatility, and approaching these earnings is going to be very interesting. The market will also respond to what GM, Verizon, and 3M have to offer for tomorrow. So it's going to be very interesting. Don't forget that Wednesday is going to be the biggest day of the week. We have communications and tech earnings, not to mention the very, very big FOMC meeting with Jerome Powell speaking. It's going to be a crazy, crazy day on Wednesday. Make sure you're ready, and until then, we're going to be 12.25 for tomorrow and see if this thing could pump a little bit more before trading a little bit sideways, in my opinion, just to consolidate a bit, and then we'll see what happens after that. But for now, just get ready for the big earnings. They're going to affect NEO. I am anticipating a little bit more upside before this thing slows down just a little bit, and we could discuss some consolidation a little bit later tomorrow. Thanks for watching our video on NIO stock. If you enjoyed this content and want to stay updated on the latest investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Remember, investing involves risks, so do your own research before making any financial decisions. Stay tuned for more exciting content, and happy investing.